Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Patmos, and I have a very important update for you about measles. So, today it was reported that measles is now breaking out all across the United States. There are now documented in excess of 1,500 cases of measles. And as you know, with contagious diseases, even though they're required to be reported, very often they are not reported. And the estimates are that with these kinds of contagious diseases, the reported cases or the actual cases are anywhere from 2 to 3 times or more than the reported cases. So the likelihood is that there are as many as perhaps 5,000 cases of measles around the United States right now. This is serious because measles is a highly contagious disease and it is associated with significant morbidity and even mortality. And what also makes this unusual is that the United States was free of measles. We had no significant measles for decades. This is the biggest outbreak in 30 years. And it's really interesting. It's very sad, but it's also really interesting. So it begs the question, where did this start? How did this happen? I mean, the virus doesn't fall out of the sky. It's passed from person to person. The only way you can get measles is if you catch it from somebody else who has measles. So we have a big outbreak in the United States right now. And what happened was earlier this year, there was a big outbreak in Texas that started in January. Hundreds of people in Texas were sickened, and two died. And these were among unimmunized people. But where did the Texas outbreak start? Well, we really don't know for sure, but it is interesting that there was an outbreak in Florida in 2024, in the second half of the year of 2024, and there was something very unusual about that outbreak in Florida. Well, it was first of all, it was the biggest one we had in years, 285 cases. But the thing that made it really fascinating and interesting was that the state's attorney general, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, broke all the rules when he advised parents of children who were exposed that it was okay for them to send their kids to school. Typically, the recommendation would be, excuse me, to quarantine those children for 21 days until it can be sure that they're not infected and they wouldn't pass it on to anyone else. But Dr. Joseph Ladapo, being a anti-vax contrarian and not trained in infectious diseases, made a peculiar recommendation, actually an outrageous recommendation, where he said that he's leaving it up to parents to decide whether or not to quarantine their exposed children. That drew a lot of criticism, including from myself. I did multiple podcasts about it last year, predicting that this would be a big problem. Well, sure enough, the Florida outbreak did seed other outbreaks in neighboring states like Georgia and Louisiana. But then it seemed to peter out until January 2025, just a few months later, when it pops up in Texas. Now, how is it possible to connect the Texas outbreak to the Florida outbreak? Yes, it is possible through molecular genotyping of the virus. You can do specific, like viruses have like a fingerprint. You can tell what virus is connected to another virus. And if the Florida outbreak seeded the Texas outbreak, we would know because there's phenotypic evidence connecting the two. But guess what? Florida never did or didn't release the genotyping. It's very unusual for this to happen. Most of the time, when there's an outbreak of measles or any reportable illness, the pathogen will be studied and identified genotypically, because that information is really important to other neighboring states for public health reasons. Well, it's very unusual that Florida did not either didn't test their measles, or they withheld the information, because there's no evidence that I can find where the measles virus in Florida in 2024 was ever publicly revealed to be what its genotypic sequencing was. All this is below in the text. I did an AI-enabled search around this, but I think it's fascinating. So here's the bottom line. We've got a huge measles epidemic right now in the United States, probably 5,000 cases. That followed on the heels of the Texas outbreak, which followed just a couple of months after a Florida outbreak. I am raising the question. It's a speculation, but I think it's a valid speculation. Could there be a connection between Florida and Texas and then this subsequent nationwide outbreak? And did this happen because Florida withheld the genotyping information from the public. The public needs to know. The state of Florida needs to investigate this. Federal health officials need to investigate this. We need to know whether or not Florida withheld information that is of importance from a public health standpoint around the country, because right now there are thousands of people out there sick with measles. Some of them are going to have a bad outcome. So that's my question in my post for today, and I hope you find that interesting. I think Florida has something. Dr. Joseph Ladapo has some questions to answer. Why didn't they genotype the virus, and why haven't they disclosed those results?